Spiritus Movens that keep a picture alive for Jews in Bitola. Here are some characteristic photos through objective of Uri Oren from Monastir, Old Town in 30s, 40s, 50s when Monastir became Bitola. The new monastery exists before Ottoman occupation. Here are some Jewish families like Pardo, Esther Ovadia, Leon Kamhi and his mother Esther. In 1930, Bitola has kindergarten children with Hebrew teacher, where young Jews learned to sing traditional Jewish songs and were told them stories. On the picture, we can see the river Dragor, the ghetto during 1930 in Monastir Jewish streets, the ruins of Aragon, Ozerdalim synagogue on Sremska street after bombing on First World War. Ozerdalim provided medical care and had doctor. The plaque of Ozerdalim now is at Belgrade Jewish Museum. Also in Monastir is gravestones that have faded completely in the Jewish cemetery of Bitola in Second World War. The Malbish Irumim was the clothing aid society in 1928. The memorial plaque in the factory wall commemorating the Jews who were held there before being sent to the death camp Treblinka. The Skopje municipality installed the plaque. For the Jews, we know from the old history that they are people who live in clans, Israels and Judans, and from Arabia came in Palestine in 12th century BC. In the Bible, Moshe is mentioned as a leader who gave the 10th God commandments at United Jews clans. Also Jewish people through centuries, scattering exactly in all history through the Roman provinces and came in Macedonia. In Byzantine Slavic period, the Jews scattered through many Byzantium cities. For Bitola Jews exists the fact that origin from Spain and Portugal and arrived in Bitola from Spain in 1492 and from Portugal in 1497. From medieval age documents, we know that most of them were educated doctors, pharmacists, bankers, industrials, etc. They were also known as Sephardic Jews, on Sephard in Spanish, which means Jew. They brought with them their culture, identity, Ladino, and religious life. 5 years after they arrived in Bitola, they built Jewish cemetery and often took actions to recover the Jewish cemetery. In Bitola, the Jewish municipality were founded various sports, music clubs, singing clubs, Zionist movements, with prominent leader Leon Kamhi. Also traditional professions was sarafs, money changers. They were climbers, participants in Rotary, Red Cross participants, love, help and work groups, partisans who had anti-fascistic actions. They had libraries. They were rabbis, poets, literates, pharmacists, doctors. In Bitola, Jews in 1894 have 9 synagogues. Portuguese, Aragon, on family Kanchi, Kadisha, Levi, Aroesti. Also, they had drivers theater, football clubs like Sinai, Hadkiva, Maccabi, Shekel Committee, Olympic Club. Also, in synagogues, in their religious life, they read Torah and Talmud, prayed and parade through streets singing Hebraic songs. Translated word by word Talmud from Hebrew to Ladino in Torah Club. The Talmud is the most written and most burned book, symbol of Judaism, also or symbol of anti-Semitism. This Talmud literature today still is not complete. The word Zion filled the heart of every Jew in Bitola. The Jewish communities from Belgrade, Zagreb, Novi Sad sometimes helped with money, clothes, medicaments. In Ottoman Empire, which was the most powerful empire and the most numerous data in Bitola Jews available from the Turkish and Jewish published and unpublished documents, Jews as non-Christians were under attack by Inquisition. In 16th and 17th century, number grew 5,000 Jews. In 12th century, their number reached up 7,000 Jews. These numbers moving up to the First World War. Spanish and Portuguese Jews in Bitola is still known as Sephardic Jews, established two communities, Aragon and Portuguese. The Jewish settlement, also known as Yehudi Hane, ghetto, Jewish area, located on the left side of the river Drago. Typical Jewish parts of the city Bitola were Lotabane, Bustaniku, Koritsos. Was the poorest chieflik and another poor neighborhood. Jews in Bitola were mentioned for being human, very tolerant people, very correct behavior, wool renters, craftsmen, leather makers, organized in guilds, bought vineyards, pastures, fields. At that time, it was quite developed Bitola Bazaar. This was written by English and French travelers, and Jews were able to operate in different areas to be chief artists, skilled and capable traders. The Bitola Jews suffered mostly from robbers who were numerous in the Ottoman state. In 1970, most of Jews took part at activities organized from the secret Macedonian Revolutionary Organization. Raphael Kamhi was the most prominent one. According to Jamila Kolomonos, after the failure of the Ilinden, many Jews immigrated to America. Also is noticed Islamization of the Jews in Bitola. Here are some of Jewish families and names: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, Moses, Aaron, Gabriel, Raphael, Reichman, Victor, Regina, Luna, Clara, Ora, Yvonne, Adijas, Albolher, Alba, Albenda, Aroesti, Aaron, Baruch, Batino, Behar, Ezra, Ben-Zion, son of Israel, Russo, Ergas, which mean work, Kamhi, which mean flower, Kolomonos, good name, Sadicario, honor, Sarfati, Sion, Shami, all originated from Spain and Portugal. The Bitola Jews and Zionism. Most of the Jews were educated people who empathized the idea of national recovery fireplace in the old country. It is also established the Universal Jewish Alliance, which goals is to help the Jews get the same civil rights in countries where they had to be protected from persecution, where are noticed statesmen for modern resolving of the Jewish problem, for free Jewish people in Palestine as a recognized nation. Prominent organizer of the Zionist movement in Bitola was Leon Kamhi. The Jewish educational life had made a progress with Alianza Israelita Universale. Worked writers and rabbis also existed. French schools, the rich, educated and wealthy Jews had libraries. Philatelists had their own folklore, horror, music, and held fast to their faith. Between the two world wars, Macedonia and Bitola was under Serbian occupation. The number of Jews was increased to 15,000. A great number of Jews also became poor, and some of them left Bitola and immigrated to Palestine, Chile, France. The traditional professors were sarafs, money changers. Several wealthy Jews families were Kalev, Pardo, Nachmias, Ergas, Aroesti. Another famous family in Bitola was the family of Calderon, also the family of Abravanel, where today the health center in Bitola has his name, the name of famous Dr. Chaim Abravanel. Ladino star Sara Areste is nephew of Aaron Areste. Last summer, returning to grandfather's hometown and witnesses for Jewish past. Also in Bitola is well known the house of Dr. Mendoza. In 1933, anti-Jewish laws and Nuremberg laws made the Jews citizens from second row. In 1938 happened Kristallnacht, where 100 Jews were murdered, burned 1,000 synagogues, 30,000 Jews were deported to camps. In 1940, Rudolf Höss became commandant of Auschwitz. In 1941, Himmler ordered the process for building of Auschwitz, where in gas chambers were cremated 3 million Jews. In 1941, Operation Barbarossa, and attacked the Soviet Union. In 1941 also started deportations. In 1942, in Wannsee conference with plan and program was made final solution, and program for Holocaust was brought without any options. Nazi doctors made an experiment on twins and women. In 1942, the Operation Reichardt made operative camps like Sobibor, Treblinka, Majdanek and Belzec, and building of the camp Treblinka was finished. Auschwitz became factory of death. Auschwitz was nonsense. The word has ended in 1945. Under Bulgarian rule, Alexander Belev and Theodor Dankay ordered 20,000 Jews, including Macedonian, to be deported. All Jews were proclaimed for enemies. Alexander Belev and Stoimenov were the main creators of anti-Semitism in Bulgaria. Jews died through transport, without food, water, air. Children and old people die. Dachau was the first camp in Nazi Germany for political prisoners, example and prototype for other camps of death. Typhus, bad, unhuman conditions for prisoners were made different experiments from Nazi doctors. Another target groups were homosexuals and children with special needs. At the end, Jews. Mengele, so-called angel of death, conducted selections that was horror, trauma, special Nazi method for spiritual annihilation. Too many Jews in ghettos had hard life. Why someone have to die? How was it humanly possible? Monastir without Jews. They haven't any sin, only sin they have. They were Jews. They made them to not recognize each other, prisoners without any guilty. Memorial Museum Holocaust in Skopje today works like educational center for Jews from Skopje and Macedonia, and other purposes are reconstruction on Jewish cemetery and educational programs for understanding on different ethnic groups. They made them to not recognize each other, prisoners without any guilty. Memorial Museum from Holocaust in Skopje today works like educational center for Jews from Skopje and Macedonia, reconstruction on Jewish cemetery and educational programs for understanding on different ethnic groups. I am born in old Jewish house in Jewish settlement behind health center in Bitola. On picture is my mother, right. I lived near a Jewish cemetery for 40 years. There I was played with my daughter too. The spirits of Jews which lived here called me, my daughter, my father. I don't look at you, but I feel that you are here. Graves that call me to write a book about Jews like people with gem of genius. Unfortunately, I published my book after that of my father, who always tell me stories about Jews. He loved very much cemeteries. He was interested about graves, their names, and he always told me that they are very smart people. The old cemetery will become a memorial park, Beit Haim, or the place of living, and Mati Grunberg will put sculpture point of view with one purpose: people to know the truth and history through different perspectives, deep in the past with view in future. In museum in cemetery are presented many photos, documents from the end of 19th and 12th century. The graves with their many century history witnesses and talk to me. Pictures are like letters. In one moment when feelings will fill with moment of pure spirit is when they met with beauty. Very important thing is way to spiritual values. We are limited to these values with pictures. We must control our feelings. Commemoration in Bitola and in the world are different. Last year, with many activities and March of Living, were marking 11th of March 1943. In Yad Vashem, the name of Monastir is written of the stones of valley of communities and rightness among the nations. Here is something about my visit in Israel, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. Western Wall, synagogues, Old Town. I felt the spirituality of Jews, their spirit, moral. Like everybody prays for Jerusalem. Air filled with mysticism and magnet for me. Zion, Tomb of David, Tomb of Jesus, Jerusalem, the town of peace. Jews, the people of book, synagogues, the modern Jerusalem, center of universe. I feel like I spoke with God, got inspiration. Oh, Jerusalem. I visit a museum of Jerusalem. With look at Yad Vashem, Israel will never forget the tragedy of Holocaust. Yad Vashem was established to keep memory. I had interviews with survivors. Listen to much testimonies. What kind of pressure I had when I talk, learn, and transfer message from one side, book are written, from other side, forgotten. In Yad Vashem, permanently there are exhibitions, curators, educators available to researchers. History tells stories, but education gives sense. Me, with group, and Dr. Hava Baruch, with pedagogical philosophy, how to learn about Holocaust through pictures, step by step. Elie Wiesel said, we need to make another language to tell our struggles. In literature, life must have super meaning. We have to believe, like Viktor Frankl, survivor from Auschwitz, said. His advice is logotherapy or bibliotherapy. The sense of our life is to help others to find their sense of life. Then happened my book, big promotion. Concluded the Jews a world miracle. Read, write, study every day. Running, meditate. The Nazi occupation was under Bulgarian rule. For Jews in Bitola became clear that fascist ideology was conducted exactly against them, which naturally found their way of resistance against fascism, from passivity to armed struggle. During the curfew, Jews were taken. Radios were subjected to physical and psychological torture, while took mass participation in the KPU in many dangerous activities were risked not only for the loss of freedom, but also the head. Also were involved women like Jamila Kolomonos, Vida Pardo, Esther Ovadia, Rebecca Roesti, Elvira Ergas, who had taken many anti-Jews actions. If Jew wanted to travel somewhere, they had to make an application to the police administration, which had to state the reason for the trip. They were consuming the right to a certain job, to live in certain cities, to move along certain streets in the park. Forced labor. The most prominent Jews partisans was Isaac Sarfati. In deportation, terrible news spread through Bitola on March 7, 1943. Who was told to the organized Jews about their deportation. Among Jews ruled earlier opinion that if deported, will be accommodated in a camp during the war and then will be returned home. They had no idea that prepares for them totally physical destruction. The plan for their deportation and liquidation has been prepared long ago. Thinking that the Bulgarian bishop would find understanding for their problem, they visited them. Then bishop encouraged them. It was a pure propaganda for their deportation, and after that Jews accepted the news with joy, but still felt some presentiment, which actually came true. Early in the morning, on 11th of March 1943, an organized group of Jews from Bitola, Jamila Kolomonos, Estrea Levi, Rosa Kamhi, managed to find shelter in Bogor Siljanovsky shop before 11th. On March, number of Jews managed to find shelter in Albania and Greece Kastoria. That morning from Bitola were deported 3,276 Jews to Treblinka 1 and 2nd camp. The Bitola Jews were awoken with the order to prepare themselves for a journey and to take only some necessary personal things, money, food, etc. The women and children screaming, being pulled, and they were taken to the railway station from Bitola to Skopje and from Skopje to Poland. In the 7th Bitola Brigade participated Esther Avadia Mara, which was declared a national hero. Antisemitism has roots in the past, in ancient Rome, so it is not an original idea of Hitler. Jewish problem exists from Rome, which led the Jews to be an evil minority in exile. In such a situation, forced on mutual solidarity, Christians and Jews, as two religions came from the same country, but anti-Semitism in Germany had the most favorable ground with Hitler, who in 1923 wrote the book Mein Kampf and exposed their views as Germany to become a major military and economic strength. Took anti-Semitic ideology of the previous century and developed his racist theory, which suggests that all people are equal in race, or there are pure and impure races. From here, Slavs and Jews were not clean race, during which Jews are the lowest rank, as the series of ills, not only for Germany but for the whole world. In Germans blonde, tall, slender, and have pure Aryan race, who are not composited with other items, and they are on the top, which recently have been passed. Lost against the Jews that must be dismissed from state jobs, and a sign of a recognition to wear 6 Stars of David. It started to stick the origin of suspicious Germans who had back to 7 Jewish origin. In the so-called racist constitution had to be German, only Aryan origin. Jews were banned from cafes, cinemas, theaters, parks. They were not mentioned. Jews that obligate the humanity, such as Freud, Trotsky, Mendelssohn, Spinoza, even the simplest people could not imagine such inhumanity of Hitler. Wrote without return. Albert Zafati left document in which he says, "They put us in wagons. There were no place, no water. In wagons were not allowed to open windows. The questions of where they grew, they lied them. 10 days sick, hungry, terminated, poor food and beatings." Bitola Jews from Skopje camp were transported 3 times with 3 compositions in Poland, in Treblinka 1 and 2. The first transportation of Jews went on 22 of March 1943. The second transport on 25 March 1943. At him there were 3 groups of Jews from Skopje, Bitola and Stip, and third was transport for Bitola's Jews. I would like to tell you something else. As I love Jews, read and write for stereotypes about Jews, I think negative stereotypes can break only just by learning and reading. Many Jewish writers have gen of genius and I love them very much. Also writers, musicians, philosophers, artists. Once I told to Ambassador Dan Orion that respects him and love very much, that is rare men that I like clear communication, that I'm afraid when I will publish my book, maybe there will not be many readers today in this world, but most important thing for me is good book and communication. I want to help my whole life. I'm talking the best and the truth for Jews as people in science, in literature, victims of Holocaust. I know there are still evil in the world and I would like to help a lot but don't know how and now where to ask. Then I believe Ambassador Dan Orion, I've sent him some documents about some seminar in Bitola last year with Dr. Hava Baruch, where I had my lectures and presentations about Bitola's Jews and announcement that I would like to write a book according to my knowledge, reading whole life, and concluded that Jews are world miracle. After that I started focus to write my book, especially before my visit in Israel, Jerusalem, in Yad Vashem, 1 week at summer last year, and after my visit I published my book in September. In Jerusalem, I called Ambassador Dan Orion and told him about my books and told him these things and asked for help. I've sent 1 copy of my book in Yad Vashem in libraries here in Macedonia. As a teacher of pedagogy and activity participated in the work of the group, realized my long-year dream to visit Israel. I think it should be the task of everyone who visits Israel and Yad Vashem to prepare a report or book and implement knowledge in practice, the most important part of history, Holocaust. My passion is literature, and on the basis of many reading and writing many years, I concluded that I should write a book with the title Jews as a People with Gen of Genius. When I was in Israel, I spoke with the ambassador Dan Orion that he may be helpful some freely copies. I haven't finished to translate or publish. There is growing bazaar. He's still no publisher, no readers who would judge or read my books. I hope the time will be the best written, but I would like if you can help to multiply there, popularize and came into the hands of more readers. Must not be forgotten this book to have other editions. I don't want my heavy writing and reading effort to stay invisible. With respect, Milka Mitsevska. Despite my obstacles, I often tell to people about tragedy of Jews, not only to give them lectures, but to explain their tragedy and their talent. Last year, I told that after my first publish here in Macedonia has no interest about my book and would be forgotten, that suffer a lot and like to come in hands of many real readers, and if he or someone else can help, will be motivated to publish another books, because here are no publishers, no readers who would judge or read my books. Hope the time will be the best treat, and still hope that can be popularized in Israel, USA, and Europe, through the world.